One of the officers who fought for his life against rioters at the Capitol speaking out tonight, and his story is one that you have got to hear. Listen up, okay? And we're going to play some of it for you. D.C. Metro Police Officer Michael Fanone has been an officer for almost 2 decades. He said that he'd rather be shot than pulled into a crowd where he had no control. But that nightmare is exactly what happened to him last week in the Capitol, at the Capitol building. So here's the video. Look at, you see him right here in the crowd trying to defend the doorway to the west entrance of the Capitol as the crowd surges around him. Later, Officer Fanone was pushed out into the sea of people outside. Okay, look, it's highlighted on your screen right now. You can see that they are beating him. He was tasered several times in the back of the neck, stunned, injured, and on the ground surrounded by rioters. Here's what happened next.
I was just, trying to fight as best I could. I remember, guys were stripping me of my gear. These are rioters, pulling my badge off my chest. They ripped my radio off my vest. Started pulling ammunition magazines from their holder on my belt. And then some guys started getting a hold of my gun, and they were screaming out, kill him with his own gun. At that point, it was just like self-preservation. How do I survive this situation? And I thought about, using deadly force. I thought about shooting people. And then I just came to the conclusion that, if I was to do that, I might get a few, but I'm not going to take everybody, and they'll probably take my gun away from me, and that would definitely give them the justification that they were looking for to kill me if they already didn't have made that up in their minds. So the other option I thought of was, try to appeal to somebody's humanity. And I just remember yelling out that I have kids. And it seemed to work. Some people in the crowd started to encircle me and try to offer me some level of protection. And they gave, that provided me with enough time, or other officers, specifically my partner, Jimmy Albright, enough time to get to me and get me the hell out of there and back into the west front of the Capitol. A lot of people have asked me, my thoughts on the individuals in the crowd that that helped me or try to offer some assistance. And I think kind of the conclusion I've come to is thank you, but you for being there.
It's exactly, full transparency, I spoke with him on, I think it was Sunday night, for 2 hours. And he is a good man. He is a good man, a decent human being, and just a regular guy. Someone who was carrying out his oath as a police officer among people who say Blue Lives Matter. And that happened to Officer Mike Fanone. Thank you, but you know what, for being there. Blue Lives Matter, right? That officer's anger shared by law enforcement around this country, furious that pro-Trump rioters breached the grounds of the Capitol, even as we are learning that among the crowd in that mob and the people being arrested and charged, there were some law enforcement, first responders, and military in that crowd. Again, the crowd that you're in. Didn't your mom always say, birds of a feather? Careful who you associate with. Officer Fanone is still suffering the effects of a mild heart attack, which have much more, we're going to have much more of the story in just a moment. But his quick thinking, his decision not to shoot to kill, it actually saved lives. The lives of those Trump-supporting rioters and his own life. And the danger is not over yet. Washington is in virtual lockdown tonight. 21,000 National Guard troops from across this country expected in the Capitol for the inauguration. Warnings that anyone trying to enter the perimeter will be subject to use of force and arrest. The FBI Director Christopher Wray speaking publicly for the first time since the insurrection at the Capitol, saying the Bureau has identified over 200 suspects, arrested more than 100. But he goes on to warn the danger is real.
We are seeing an extensive amount of concerning online chatter, I guess the best way I would describe it, about a number of events surrounding the inauguration. And together with our partners, we evaluate those threats and what kind of resources to deploy against them. Right now, we're tracking calls for potential armed protests.
Think about it. This is the crowd. Our Capitol. It's like a war zone, right? Because of Trump supporters who may try to spark more violence. Think about that. Don't try to twist it in your brain to try to make excuses for it, because it's not right.
And if he wasn't born in this country, which is a real possibility, I'm not saying it happened, I'm saying it's a real possibility, then he has pulled one of the great cons in the history of politics.
You also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did.
Well, just so you understand, I don't know anything about David Duke, okay? I don't know anything about what you're even talking about with white supremacy or white supremacists.
And if he had no background and no experience and he didn't know what he was doing, and if he was conning people into voting for him when he had no real ideological beliefs, that's a real problem. People should look into that. I'm talking about him because that's not qualified, scammed a lot of people, conned. He wasn't born in this country. I don't know. It's always like placed in the form of a question. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe. Racist. And now tonight, a large part of this country has been convinced by the lies of a desperate president and his far-right allies. They acted on the 6th of this month, and there are fears that they will act again. And I just want you to look at these pictures. Two men, two different flags. Two men who showed up in the service of this president's lies. One desecrating the nation's Capitol, carrying a Confederate battle flag. One desecrating the American flag itself, using it to beat a police officer. Wouldn't you rather someone kneel? Seems more respectful to me. Federal prosecutors charging Peter Francis Staker, saying that he is the man seen in that video beating a police officer with the American flag. Roughly 30 minutes later, according to the timestamp on the videos, prosecutors say he tells the Telegraph this.
Everybody in there is a disgrace.
It's a disgrace.
That entire building is filled with treasonous traitors.
Yes, sir.
Death is the only remedy for what's in that building.
You heard it. I don't even have to repeat it. You heard it. Stop making excuses for it. Right in front of your face. You see it with your eyes. It is what it is. It's exactly what you see.